Welcome to another Turnbuckle Trash Talk Interview Wednesday. I am your officiant, Kent, and joining me today is one half of the Frat Pack, Bud Heavy. Now, Bud, we started out at exactly the same time, the same show. We trained at the Lethal Academy.
Yep.
We started the same show, but I want to go to the past. I want to go before all of that, before Lethal Academy. When did you first get exposed to wrestling?
Jeez, man, I was just a little dude. My dad got tickets to go see WCW Front Row, and I was sitting there, and I remember it vividly. Ric Flair had that gas in his heart, thought he was having a heart attack, man, fell in the corner. And my mom and I are sitting there, and she's freaking out. My dad's like, no, it's not real. It's not real. It was real.
Of course, the one time.
Yeah. But at that moment, I think I realized, man, like, these guys are putting on a show, and they're out there, and they're doing everything. That was the moment that I was fully exposed, aside from seeing it on TV and everything. I mean, you saw glimpses of it, but that was the first time my dad let me sit through a full, thing.
So did you have any favorite wrestlers growing up? Any people who were like inspirational to you or influences on you, or just people you just liked seeing?
Quite a bit, man. Most definitely is always going to be Flair. I think everybody says that. Sting. I was a big Sting mark, man, like big time. Was also a big, huge fan of the Hearts, man. I mean, that kind of goes without saying, I think, right? Your general,
Well, you're on both sides of the fence because a lot of the Hearts were in WWF and a lot, obviously Sting, Flair were WCW, so you were kind of playing both sides of the Attitude Era.
Yeah, most definitely, man. I had a tendency to lean more toward WCW. That was my dad's era. Was most of his guys were in WCW, so I had a tendency to swing toward that one more. I mean, the Attitude Era was great. Don't get me wrong, but there was just something about that time in WCW, man.
When did you decide, okay, this is something I actually want to pursue, something I actually want to do? Was there a particular moment that you were watching, or just a moment in your life where you were like, I gotta do this, it's now or never? Like, when did that moment happen for you?
Man, dude, that moment, I know exactly when it was. So it was when Seth Rollins turned on the Shield. And I hadn't been watching wrestling, and my wife was watching wrestling, which is weird, right?
That is a little bit.
Yeah. And so she said, turn it on and watch it with me. So I was like, okay. So we're watching it, and I remember that moment, and I was like, wow, I don't know the whole backstory. You guys have sucked me right back in, man. And when they did, a couple weeks later, I was sitting there joking with my wife, and I was like, I can do this. And she's like, yeah, sure. And I was like, no, I think I can do this. She was like, okay, sure. So a couple days later, I wake up, and she's like, get up, we're going to Orlando. And took me on a tour of my first wrestling school, and that would be Team 3D. And that was it, man. From there, it was on.
So what made you decide you wanted to go to the Lethal Academy and train under Jay Lethal, as opposed to a Team 3D or a 2.0 or one of the many, many other schools out there?
So I had gotten injured at Team 3D, not at any fault, just injured during workouts. And I went to Supercard of Honor the WrestleMania weekend that it was here in Orlando. She took me. She forced me to go. I was kind of fading out of wrestling, man. That injury kind of took me out. I was like, I don't really want to do this.
Well, it can hurt the confidence to just get started and then all of a sudden, right away, experience an injury.
Yeah, and it had been a year, that it was like, it was like, wow, I've been doing this for a year. I haven't done anything, and I got injured. Like, I don't know if I can do this. So she forced me to go, and we just so happened to walk in when Jay was doing one of those, Q&As in the ring, and they said, what do you like to do? What do you like to do when you're not wrestling? And he's like, man, I love to train my students. And she elbowed me so hard, man. And I just remember thinking, what is that for? What? And so a couple weeks go by, maybe a month, and we end up at one of their shows, out at the old Big Top. And that was it, man.
That was actually how I got first exposed to it. I decided just on a lark to go and check out one of these local wrestling shows.
Right.
And I was like, oh, they have a school and like all this other stuff. So yeah, I totally can relate to that. So talk me through your time training with Jay. I mean, obviously I had my own experience, but what was it like for you, especially starting out with this kind of like, I'm not sure I even want to do this type of attitude? Was there a moment during training that like a switch flipped and you were like, yes, I am all in on this? or was it kind of like a gradual, like, okay, I'm building up confidence, so like I can see that, okay, I'm doing this longer without getting hurt. You know, I'm actually learning how to do it appropriately, and like I'm conditioning myself to be able to do this. What was that experience?
Actually, dude, it was the first suplex, man. The first time that he taught me how to do a suplex, which I mean, because I had already hit the ropes and I had already bumped, so none of that was like, the first couple of classes were just kind of stuff I'd already done, you know, like locking up and everything like that. These guys that were around me hadn't done it, but I already had. And when it came time to toss someone over my head for the first time, man, and I hit it and I picked it up and I dropped him. I just remember sitting there after I hit it and going, yeah, this is it, man. Like, I can do this. And I went home that night, and I can't tell you how much I must have talked about just suplexing someone. I probably just bored my wife to death. She's like, geez, I don't care.
So you get through the school, you graduate. Talk me through your first match. Now, I was the referee for your first match.
You were.
And it was my first match as well. So it was an entirely different experience for me than it probably was for you. But talk me through it. Talk about your opponent. Talk about how you felt the match went. And just the whole experience and environment of it all.
Man, it was so funny. So, you know, it's JC Vega, one half of the Millennials at the time. And when it happened, my music hits, which I don't know what I'm coming out to. So I'm standing on the other side of the curtain, and I'm thinking to myself, no one went through this. This wasn't taught in class. Well, of course you can't teach it, you know? So no, I didn't know what I was going to do. And so when the music hit, I was like, when do I go out? What the hell do I do? And so I walk out, and all I remember was seeing my entire family and my friends that all decided they were going to come that day. Thank you, you know? And it was just mind-blowing to me, and it felt... At that moment when I slid through the ropes, I remember thinking, I've never felt more at home than in between these ropes. And I've done a lot of other stuff, you know. I've been in front of crowds before. I played in death metal bands my whole, you know, childhood. But when I stood in those ropes, I was like, this is it, man.
There's a different electricity in a wrestling ring than there is on a stage as an actor or on a stage as a musician or any kind of performing art. I feel like you get that almost Rockstar feeling without having to know an instrument to do it, or without having to be able to sing to do it. There's just this atmosphere in wrestling that is unlike anywhere else.
It's true, man. And then when the match kicked, I mean, I was so nervous, dude. And when it kicked in the first punch, I mean, he rocked me, bro. Like, he rocked me. And I remember thinking, crap, like, is this what oh man, I hope I can get the rest of this. He cleaned it up after that, you know, everything was fine, and the match I thought went okay. You know, some people have their opinions of it. Everybody's gonna. It's our first match. I mean, come on now.
I was, like I said, I was in that match, and I felt like it went great, personally, especially considering everyone in that ring was wrestling for the first time
That's
ever.
what I'm saying, man. Like, none of us had ever done this before. Nope. And when I hit that cannonball for the finish, man, I just remember pinning the 1, 2, 3, and I remember thinking, like, I could do this for the rest of my life, and I would be happy, man. It don't matter at the scale. I mean, of course, obviously all of our goals to make it, but even if it was just for this, man, that moment right there could have ended, and I'd have been happy. Like...
Well, and it started off with you teaming with Cobalt in the Blue Thunder Wrecking Crew.
It did.
But then a time came where you broke off and kind of started the Frat Pack. Talk me through that evolution and the idea behind doing it, and you know, deciding to work with Grady and everything like that. Talk me through that time.
So the first character, you know, the first Riley Reynolds,
iteration.
if you will. Yeah. You know, I wasn't really comfortable with what he was, man. I wanted him to be different, and it just didn't come to fruition, especially with Cobalt. It wasn't gonna. I mean, those two characters may have fit together there, but I didn't feel like I was fitting in.
Right.
And so I asked, you know, I was like, hey, man, I just want to be a heel, man. Like, I just wanted to be a heel. And I was foaming at the mouth for it, and someone gave me the opportunity, you know, and at that moment, when I did it, there was no intention to tag with Grady at all. And then when we, outside of the ring, we had a chemistry, and someone saw that, and they were like, man, you got to get these two together. And when they did, it was lightning in a bottle, man. And the character that I had at the time, changing to the character I am now, man, Grady and we just met like it was fine, man. It was perfect.
Well, it feels like you were able to find more of a personal connection with Bud Heavy that you weren't finding with Riley Reynolds, because Riley was just kind of this, like, clean-faced baby face, you know? Like, there wasn't really anything meaty to bite into with him other than your skill set, other than, you know, with what personality you could show. I feel like it's almost more difficult to be a face than it is to be a heel.
Oh, 100
because everybody has a dark side.
Yeah.
But not everybody has that almost like virtuous, like that ability to reach so far to be like, I am such a good dude. Like it's a really big challenge.
Yeah.
So yeah, with the transition to Bud Heavy, I feel like we saw a part of you awaken and be able to show itself more. So what was kind of the idea behind the Frat Pack as a whole? Like, why go that direction? I mean, almost none of us are in college anymore, so
Right,
like,
yeah.
why all of a sudden revert back to a different place, a different time, a different mentality? What was the idea for that?
Funny story, I never went to college.
Me either. So.
Real talk, man. It was just one of those moments where we were sitting there and we were with Dakota, just so happens, and we were just talking, and they were like, "Man, you guys are you're upbeat. You're kind of obnoxious. Why not do like a loud, obnoxious party gimmick?" We're like, "Yeah, but it's not really us." They're like, "Dude, you guys should do Frat Boys, man." And we were like, "Wow!" Like it just felt right. And at that moment, when we did it the first time, this was like I went and got Josh for the first time, and we had like the Hawaiian shirts on, and all that stuff. And I mean, I just remember thinking as we walked through, I was like, this something feels right. I don't know why we reverted backwards. It just seemed like no one was doing.
Well, to be fair, Grady's young. He
Yeah.
could still be in college.
Just
so
a baby.
It works for him.
Yeah.
But for
Yeah.
old guys like us, it's just like, wow, if I had gone to college or if I had been in a frat, it would have been like 10 years ago now.
Yeah,
so.
and there's like this moment where he's like, yeah, like at the college frat parties, and I just stare at him like, dude, my college frat party was 10 years ago, kiddo. Like,
yeah, like I have
not
no
how this
idea what
works.
that means.
He's like, yeah, we're gonna do like an icing thing. I'm like, I don't know what that is. Like, what? We're gonna drink what? Like, just like, dude, I just want to go out and have fun. And I think that's why the character worked, is because really, like Riley, like I said, I felt forced at times, man. It just really did. But this time I get to go out and I just get to have fun.
Well, and I felt like you guys caught lightning in a bottle with that team.
Yeah.
Like, you guys started traveling. You were all over the place. The doors opened. Like, a lot of opportunities
Yeah.
came your guys' way. And it's one of those teams where I'm like, that's a thing that promoters didn't bite onto as well as they should have at the time.
Yeah,
because you guys were hot, and that would have been a time to put tag titles on you or to really push you guys to the moon, because it was working. Whatever you guys were doing was working, as heels, as faces. It didn't
Everywhere.
really matter. Wherever you went, you were getting a reaction.
Shirts were in the crowd, man. Yeah.
And that's such a rare thing to happen with a brand new team.
Yeah,
you
especially
got to
with-
build that momentum.
With the two of us as fresh as we were in the business, I mean, he's only 3 or 4 months ahead of me. So to get that hot that quick was wild. And then also, like, I remember lying in the ring, and there was an 8-way tag match, or, a 4-way tag match with 8 of us in the ring. And I remember lying there and hearing the crowd chant our name. And it was right before, the last match we had together. Before now we make our reiteration of us, but like before that and I remember thinking to myself, I was like, geez, you guys really missed the boat on this one. Like, and I don't mean to be that guy, but like there's just moments you can see it as a wrestler. You're like, damn, like it's time. And that time passed, like you said, a lot of guys just didn't bite, man. And then now I feel like they're trying to bite now, and it's like it's
kind of a little late.
a little
It
late.
feels like you guys have almost evolved beyond that, or like trying to find your footing again, because
Yeah.
you did have to take a break with Grady moving to Texas for a bit.
Yeah.
What was that time period like? Because you guys were on such a momentous high, and it almost came to a dead stop.
It did, man.
Suddenly, and we won't go into the details as to why. That's not our business to discuss. But how did that feel? I mean, you had all this momentum, and you basically had to just go like, now it's just me. I have to take this alone and try to continue on any kind of trajectory. How did you feel about that?
It sucked, man. Because then at that time, people just knew me as a tag wrestler. I mean, I'd been with Cobalt, and then I jumped to Grady. I hadn't done anything singles except for like an occasional match here and there. So to sway a promoter to think, okay, now this guy alone has what it takes, that's hard. For a lot of guys starting out, they start out singles and end up in a tag team. And
Yeah.
It seems to work a little bit better for them, because then when they go the singles route, people already know what they got.
Yeah, you almost get typecast after a certain point. If you came in with a certain impression, to change that impression is so much more difficult.
So difficult, dude. And that's what sucked, is at a time, man, it felt like just a halt. Like I wasn't going anywhere, man. And I just remember wrestling in Tampa, and actually I wasn't booked at this show. And I showed up, and it was against Aqua Bro and against a couple guys from up north. And Dave said, hey, do you want to work? And I was like, sure, man. And he throws me in this match. And, we had a good match, don't get me wrong. But at the time, I just remember thinking, I don't know, man. Like, obviously no one sees the value. And I still sometimes that goes, I think everybody goes through that.
Oh, for sure.
Especially, in certain promotions where they're just not utilizing you what you feel to your potential. But it was a lot. I had an understanding of why they weren't. I was sitting there going, well, they only see me as a tag wrestler. They only see me as a guy who tags with Grady. At the time that I thought was the star power Josh. Was he the star power? Was I just the gimmick? And slowly but surely people are telling me, no, that's not the case. You got it. But you got to it's hard to get back on your feet from that.
Well, I think one of the things that kind of goes through various phases in wrestling is tag team wrestling as a whole. Like, it can go through enormous highs and tremendous lows.
All the time.
So being a steady, stable tag team is a valuable asset no matter what period it is. So I could see a lot of promoters being like, we really needed you as a tag team. Now we don't know what to do with you because of that. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges as a wrestler at all, is to maintain confidence when everything is telling you we basically can't use you, or we basically don't want you right now. Like, you're not, and this is not quoted exactly, but you're not worth anything to us at the moment.
Yeah, and that's how it felt, man. And it also felt like limbo, and like a bunch of promotions. Just we were hot limbo, dude. And then I had nothing, man. I had no one to wrestle. They were like, yeah, we'll put you in on the first match before the doors. I'm like, man, we were just co-headlining shows, and then now you're gonna be like, here's first match. And some places it's still like that, man. And some people just haven't seen the value yet. Again, they'll come, hopefully.
They'll come around. They will.
And that's the thing, I just had to rebuild that confidence, and man, without him there, it was hard. And then working my first singles match without him, man, I was like, what do I do?
Well, and it's also hard to keep perspective of, you've only been in the business less than 2 years.
Yeah.
Like, officially in the business less than 2 years, where there are guys that have been here 10 years, 15 years,
man.
Anything like that. So it's really hard to remember, oh, that's right, I'm still green as goose shit, basically.
Right?
I still have a lot of time to put in before I can really start to think, this isn't working, I shouldn't do this anymore. Like,
right.
If you've been in the business 10 years and it hasn't worked, maybe it's time to say, okay. But after 2 years, it's like, come on, you're really just getting started. And it's hard to remember that.
That's what a lot of people ended up telling me, man. They're like, dude, it's just the start, man. Like, don't give up so easily, man. And if you do, then you really don't want it. And I'm like, man, well, you guys have no clue how bad I want it, so you're right, But And it took a lot of my family telling me, hey, dude, you're only a year deep, or you're only a year and a half deep. It's just getting started. Are you still having fun? And of course I'm still having fun. When I walk through those curtains, man, everything goes away. So I can't leave that. And I don't want to be the weekend warrior. That's my one issue, is that, I got those guys that they just come out, they do it on the weekend, and they go home. That's not me, man. Everything's 110 or not at all. So that's where I have the issue, is if someone's not using me to the 110, I'm thinking, crap, is this what it should be? But like you said, man, over time, hopefully they'll come, and hopefully at some point I'll get over the fact that I'm still only 2 years in the business, and there's still time to get hot, man.
Well, and it's interesting to me that you are diving so headfirst into this business.
Yeah.
When you're married, you have a young child. Talk about family, because family has been a constant theme through what you've said throughout this whole interview, about the support of your parents, the support of your wife, how she even got you doing this.
She's the whole reason, man.
She's the whole reason you're doing this. Talk about how important that is, and the importance of maintaining a balance with all that too, because it's so easy in this business to get a almost rock star mindset and just go on the road and forget about all the stuff you've got waiting at home.
Yeah.
But you somehow managed to make that work. Just go.
It's difficult, man. Like I said, I'm either 110% or I'm not at all, man. And it's been like that whenever I get into any business. I played video games for a living before I did this, and it's 9-hour days, 6 days a week, man. It was brutal. But my wife's always been so much of a supporter that it's hard for me to use her as an excuse to not do something, because I know she would want me to do it. My mother's the same way, and even my in-laws, man, they're so supportive. We stay on the same property as them. They see me every day, and everyone's just so supportive. And I think that's something that's lost in the world, is wanting to see others succeed. My wife, she may not she may not see me for 3 days, but as long as she knows that I'm out there doing what I want to do and succeeding, and she knows that the end game is all for my family, man.
Of course.
I mean, I've got a 3-year-old, like you said, and he's my world, man. And without him, I wouldn't be able to do this, because when I'm in the ring and I get rocked, or when I'm feeling like I don't want to get out of bed in the morning, man, I get back up because of him. And in the end, that's what it's all for, man. I want him to know that he can do whatever he wants, whether it's he wants to be a painter or a ballerina for that matter, man. I'm going to be in that crowd, and I'm going to be screaming just as loud. And I think that's important. And my family has always taught me that. My mom has always taught me that, and she was like, do it. If you're going to do it, do it. And that's why I dive headfirst into everything. And this one was rough to do because a lot of people tell you don't. A lot of people are like, take it easy, take it easy. The take it easy guys, man, the problem is, I don't see as many of them succeed as the guys that took it all, man. That slept in the cars, that drove the 12-hour drives, And I'm riding with guys like the Blondes places, and I'm realizing, man, these guys are putting in the work. And when they're putting in the work and they're doing it.
Well, and they have. I mean, Michael Patrick, almost 10 years now. Leo Bryan, almost 5 years now. Like, they're putting in that. I mean, they're still grinding even this far in.
And I mean, those guys are on TV, man. And that's the kind of guys that I aspire to be like, man. Those guys are my my end game, if you will. I mean, I could get to where they're at, and I could be happy, man. And they're the guys. They always, they always have stuff to learn. They're always learning. They're not the smartest people in the business. They won't tell you they are. And I think that's something, again, you always have to be willing to learn, and you always have to be open to change.
Absolutely.
The business is changing. I mean, it's better than it's ever been, don't be wrong, but it's one of those things, you have to be willing to change. The Blondes are, I mean, sure, they're old school. They're a throwback. They know how to work it into what's doing now. And so you watch people change like that, the evolution of the sport, and you also gotta support your peers, man. Sure, it sucks when dude gets signed and you don't, but that's just another dude in the door for you, man. I mean, or that's another spot you could step up and take,
Yeah. So I'm going to ask you the 2 questions I ask everybody on every interview.
Yeah.
Number 1, if you had to give advice to someone starting out in the business, what would it be?
Ooh.
Or wanting to get into the business. They may not even have started yet. They're just like thinking about it. What would you tell them?
Remember that it's hard. Remember that giving up shouldn't be an option. If you give up, then, I mean, you never wanted it in the first place.
Yeah, if you even have the possibility in your mind of giving up, it means that you're never going to actually succeed.
This business is not friendly to people who don't come in with the mindset of, I'm doing it. It's either that way or you don't make it, man. And another thing about it, too, is that what I would tell people is shut up and listen, man. I mean, that's one of those things a lot of new guys don't know, man. You come in and you can't act like just because you got something. Like, so you got a spot on MLW before so-and-so did. Cool, but so-and-so may have been in the business for 10 years. They still know more than you, man. Shut up and listen, and just remember that everyone usually is there to help you succeed, man. No one really wants to bury someone. And if they do, those guys. Yeah. Those guys stand out.
Yeah. If you could change one thing about the business on any level, whether it's backstage, whether it's in the ring, whether it's audience perception, whether it's, promotion, whatever the case is, what would you change?
This one's probably gonna rub some people the wrong way, man. But the whole paying your dues thing, I get. But the free labor, the promoters that won't take 5 minutes of their day to look at a message, man. Social media is so important nowadays, and it's how we get everything. And thankfully, it's something that has helped the business out. So in return, it's helped wrestlers out too. Sure, I can send messages to 30 promotions on Facebook, but I've done it, and I've only gotten 2 responses. And it's because the guys don't even take their time to look. And if it was something that could change, I'm not gonna drive. I can't drive to Tennessee just to help.
Yeah.
I have a family. I have kids. So do other people. They have real life, man. And so it's one of those things that I wish would change. It's that free labor, that, hey, show up and help type mentality.
Well, yeah, it's that old school, almost carny mentality that doesn't really work in the 21st century anymore. I mean, we've got ways to communicate. We've got ways to show off what we're capable of through YouTube, through Facebook, through whatever. And so to say, like, well, we need to see your dedication. You need to drive, 12 hours and sleep in your car, make no money, work a 12-hour show and then not know whether you got anything out of it.
Yeah.
That, I get that there are people who are capable of that, but I think more people aren't than used to be. And so I think you're going to see less and less people doing that, which doesn't help anyone.
No, and again, like I said, it's one of those things. I know it has to exist for a reason. I know there is some form of showing your dedication. But also promoters have to remember, man, we're putting our bodies on the line, man. I'm 30 years old, and I'm out here bumping around like I'm young, and you got to remember that, like, I'm asking for some money, but that's because I'm throwing my body at you. I'm throwing years away of my life, my career. You know, these guys that are older and been doing this for a long time, some of them are really bad, and I mean, but they were making money, you know, and that's the way that you have to look at it. Is sometimes we sacrifice, hopefully we can make money, or hopefully we can do this for a living. But if you're the guy on the other end, it's hard as a worker to go throw yourself off the turnbuckles for nothing, man.
Yeah.
And also to show up and put a ring together and then be told, thanks, brother, go home, and it was a 6-hour drive.
And they didn't remember you at all.
Right, man. And that's one of those things. I just wish that, like, that would change. I wish that people would utilize social media more and look at it almost like a job. You have a resume, man, and if you think I fit what you are, then just give me a shot, man. You can fire me. It takes no time. You can literally give me one show, and if I suck, send me home. But at least give me a reason to drive out there. You know, I can ride with guys all day long. That's another thing. You know, I do love the open seat policy that this business has. But it's also hard. Again, I have a family, man. So if I'm gone all weekend for what, you know, for nothing, I didn't get paid at all. Sometimes that's hard to justify just alone to anyone, man, to myself, but much less to my family, man. And that's something that I wish we could do away with, man.
Well, and I think promoters are missing out on really good talents because they're almost cutting out the possibility of them even getting a shot because of whatever reason, because they didn't drive to Tennessee to not get paid and to help set up a ring. Like, I feel like they're cutting out a whole another branch of people who can give them something that can benefit them. And I'm not saying that necessarily people who are able to do that shouldn't do that.
Right.
There is a benefit to doing it that way as well.
Yeah.
But to say that that's the only way it's done is completely antiquated.
Yeah, and again, like I said, like, I mean, there's guys that, like, the promoters look at it this way, like, why would I pay you so-and-so to come when I can not pay this guy and he'll do it? But I can almost guarantee that not paying that guy and he's doing this, I'm sorry, but, like, he's probably not on our level. And that's what it is.
Well, and that's only going to last so long, too. Eventually that person's
He'll
going to
get
say,
tired
I
of it.
need to get paid or I'm going to stop coming too.
Yeah, because, I mean, in the end, dude, your art's worth money. Your art's worth something. And if money's what we go by, then it's worth that. And so I think people need to pay that for it. I know that a lot of these guys don't draw as much as they would like to, and that's not at anybody's fault. Just sometimes it happens.
I think on the indies, in its entirety, it's really difficult to be a draw.
110%.
Like, at all. Like, I get that shows draw. I get that people who've been on TV draw. But I think as just an indie star who's only been on the indies, it's really difficult to have name recognition be a draw versus, oh, well, it's a really good show and you happen to be on it.
Yeah, and that's the other thing, too. Like, these guys got to look at it like, I think, sure, I didn't put, quote-unquote, asses in the seats. Maybe I didn't. But my YouTube video that you put up of my match might get 6,000 views.
Yeah.
That's asses in the seat.
Yeah, I
mean,
feel like the draw has translated more to social media than it has
man.
to physical representation.
Yeah, sure, you're not coming to the show to see me, but she might be in Canada watching my match. Now you know of so-and-so's promotion because I wrestled there.
Yep.
Maybe you follow my YouTube channel and I put it up.
Or even friends in the area who see your YouTube video might be like, I'm going to go to one of his shows sometime.
You know, and that's what happened with Tampa Bay, man. Like, I knew, okay, so there's Jay. Sure, he's the draw. But I saw a match from the first show, so I went to the second show.
Yeah.
You know, and that was it. There it was. And, I mean, I think that could happen more. You know, of course, social media is such a huge portion of what we do. And I think promoters need to utilize it, too. I really do.
Oh, absolutely. So now I want to give you an opportunity to promote anything you want to promote. Your social media, your wife's wonderful t-shirt company, which actually made these shirts. Emily's Designs. I'll give you a chance to promote that some more. But go ahead and plug yourself in any way possible. Maybe not specific shows because this may come out in like 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah.
But yeah, go nuts.
Dude, just follow me on Twitter. It's Bud Heavy at Twitter. Instagram's the Frat Pack. We also have Facebook, the Frat Pack, also have Bud Heavy. Of course, like he said, my wife, dude, Emily's Designs on Facebook, does great work. Works with anybody, man, whether you want to get 100 shirts or whether you want to get 10, man. That's what we're there for. That helps us out. That helps me get around doing everything I do. That's how we kind of keep things balanced. Also, man, the YouTube, Bud Heavy, you know, And man, I got merch on the Facebook, man. If you can help us out, bro, it really does help a lot. I've got koozies, magnets, shirts, different kinds of stuff, man, and 8x10s, all sorts of stuff, man. Just help us out, man, because anything helps, man. It's gas in the tank to the next show, and maybe I'll see you there.
Well, Bud, thank you so much for joining me. I know you got a show tonight. We both do.
Yeah.
So let's get to it. Guys, thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you on the next Interview Wednesday.